All right, happy Wednesday night, everybody. At least I think it's Wednesday. I've completely lost track of days this week. So, for all I know, it's Tuesday or Thursday. Either way, glad you're with us here in Raiderland World Headquarters. Got a fun show for you tonight. We continue on with our Talkin Baseball series. Tonight, your favorite right fielders of all time, greatest right fielders of all time. Hi there, Clemente. Hi there, Juan Gonzalez, which is just one of the fun names to say all the time for the Texas Rangers. We have that. We have What If Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we dabble in the world of alternative history. Tonight, we ask the question, what if Texas Tech never became the Red Raiders? What if today Texas Tech were still the Matadors? How would that have changed history, affected branding, the identity of the school? If in 2025 it were still the Matadors, how different would that be? And it was this close to never becoming the Red Raiders. We'll explain why. And then finally, and I hope you've read it, we linked to it on our Facebook page for Ryan Hyatt's Raiderland, on our YouTube, not our YouTube, but our Twitter channel page, whatever you call it, Twitter feed, Ryan Hyatt Media. Great piece, CBSSports.com, CBS Sports Line, the old CBS Sports Line. Shehan Jeyarahah with a tremendous look at Cody Campbell, Texas Tech football, West Texas, Lubbock, the entire region. It's one of the best pieces, one of the best articles I've seen written about this area in years. Years. Texas Tech and the city of Lubbock and the Chamber of Commerce, they couldn't have, I mean, if they tried to write it themselves, they wouldn't have done it as well as Jeyarahah did. And it's some great stuff. And I hope you've read it. We'll get your thoughts on it tonight. Right now, though, we want to get you in on What If Wednesday, if Tech were never the Red Raiders. How different would things be? Favorite right fielders all time. We'll give you ours. Anything else beyond that? Hey, we're here in Texas State's going to the Pac-2. I keep seeing Pac-12. I thought there were like two teams. I want to apologize right now that years ago, on the radio show, both the Williams and I show and Raiderland Radio with Rob Rowe and me, saying that Tech should try to get into the Pac 10, 12, 14, 16, whatever. God, what a mistake that would have been. I apologize again. For ever uttering that out loud. I honestly thought they cared about football and college sports out there, because they are the Conference of Champions, or were. In 3, in 2. Good evening, West Texans, all you good, fine, friendly folks out there who wish you were. I'm Ryan Hyatt, theraiderland.com. You start your day on the website, you find out the question of the day, you check out the Raiderland hot links. Coolest, freshest links from around Raiderland and beyond. We figure if we like it, you're going to like it. We're glad you're here tonight, getting in on the United Supermarkets at Market Street chat line. They support Texas Tech. They back the Red Raiders, unlike some, places in town that sell you groceries to take your money and put it on scoreboards down around Austin would be a place. Also brought to you by Gators Bayou, 98th and Slide Road, right there on the corner. Awesome Cajun food, hot Cajun food, cold drinks. All the games on TV, great patio. This time of year, they got live music during the summer. So check it out. Also, become a part of their rewards club. Get on their text, I don't know, text club or whatever. You text such a number in, you get cool stuff, free appetizers right when you sign up. Check it out at Gators Bayou and McAlpin Chiropractic. Remember, if your back's out of whack, don't call a quack. Call Kevin Mack. Totally not his slogan. That would be, I think, moderately illegal. But he's just a great West Texas guy. He's worked with high-level Texas Tech athletes over the decades. He's worked with my own family members. I can't give you a better endorsement than that. If I would trust my own family to Kevin McAlpin, if you need a chiropractor, if you're not feeling your best, give him a holler. Tell him, tell Kevin we sent you. All right, what if Wednesday? What if Texas Tech never became the Red Raiders? What if they had remained the Matadors? And we'll tell you how, for the youngins and even the old ones who maybe don't know their history exactly, some of the components on how that happened tonight, and what it would be like to be the Matadors today in 2025. Favorite right fielders of all time. All right, we will begin and start the discussion with Roberto Clemente, and then we're going to go from there. And do I put Clemente over Ruth? Yeah, probably. Hank Aaron, right fielder. Reggie Jackson. Tony Gwynn. For the kids of the 80s, Tony Gwynn. See your favorite right field? I don't know. Enos Slaughter, anybody this would be Mike Gustafson, David Baldner, and a couple of other of my friends who are St. Louis Cardinal fans. So Enos Slaughter, right? Frank Robinson back in the day. Ichiro and Gwynn, right? Same guy, different guy. And then your favorite Rangers and Astros playing right field. Really, for the Rangers, there's probably only one right fielder. And it will allow me to utilize a horrible impersonation that I do. But I just like saying it that way. It's the only way to do it. So let's get it going there on the chat line, brought to you by United Supermarkets and Market Street. Those are the topics tonight. And again, if you've read the story on CBSSportsline.com by Shehan Jeyarahah on Cody Campbell on Texas Tech, I want to get your thoughts on it. And because I think it's one of the best I've ever read regarding the region. And hopefully we can have him on fairly soon, you know? All right, let's see. Jeff gets in first on YouTube, Ryan Heights, Raiderland. Everybody on YouTube, hit the thumbs up deal, share it, invite people in. We're trying to get over 500. We're so freaking close. And I get it. Most of you guys subscribe to our Facebook page, and we got, 2,000 or whatever it is over there. And then near 7,500 people on our Twitter feed at Ryan Hyatt Media. I know, but just cross-pollinate yourself, subscribe, get more people in. Clemente, best of all time. Dewey Evans, your favorite. Dwight Dewey Evans, Bo Sox. I'm intrigued to find out how Dewey Evans would become your favorite. Joe gets in. My man Joe, down in Alabama. Really excited that Texas Tech getting a lot of national attention. They are. Some would say they've bought it, and the people that bought it would say, damn right, we bought it. That's what we wanted. We wanted great players. We want to spend money, get attention, have expectations, all of those things and more. And that there are some people who try to use that as a negative. I'm like, where's the negative? Show me the negative. Well, what if they don't win? Well, what if they don't win? Well, then they don't win. You could don't win spending a lot of money or don't win not spending a lot of money. Jakob, greetings. Thanks for your show each night. Thank you for being out there each night. Matador, better than adopting a Scribes. Oh, fascinating there. Clemente, for me, one of the strongest and most accurate arms ever. Great human being. Obviously, we know how he lost his life flying relief aid South America. What was that? New Year's Eve, 71. I get confused sometimes on whether it was New Year's Eve 70 into 71 or 71 into 72. Either way, he got his 3,000th hit. He's flying relief aid to Nicaragua after earthquake. Plane goes down. He dies. One of the greatest ever. I was a wee lad. In fact, I was so young when he passed. I had obviously never seen him with my own eyes play. So growing up in the 70s, Clemente was this mythological figure that no baseball player could ever, be close to. And then you get older and you see the videos and you read the stories and the books and everything else. And you go, my gosh, he was that good. So I've got, I got Willie Mays in center. I've got Clemente right now in right field. You guys can convince me otherwise. That's fine. That's your job, in fact. We're talking your favorite right fielders of all time. This is our summertime Talkin Baseball series. Each day we go through a different position. So we've gone outfield, left to right. We're going to go to the infield tomorrow, third base, short, cross, and then pitcher, catcher as we go through. So that'll wrap up on July 2nd. We're going to be talking about your favorite pitchers of all time. But tonight, it's your favorite right fielders. What do you got, Ranger fans? Chris, if Texas Tech wasn't the Red Raiders, Iowa State wouldn't have had a conniption when Tech joined the Big 12. All right, that's funny. And Chris has paid attention over the years. And I really think I'm the only media member who's ever shared this story. So the Big 12 is coming together in 94, 95, get started in 96. At the time, Iowa State and a few other liberal universities around the Big Eight and through the heartland and different places had a policy that they would not play teams with Native American nicknames. So I'm in the sports information office one day, and they receive a fax, and apparently it wasn't the first one, and it was from Iowa State demanding to know exactly the origin and the understanding of what Red Raiders were. That there were people up there in Iowa State that thought Red Raiders was some sort of Native American deal, which I always thought could have been fascinating had you played it the other way. And I'm not going to tell the story about a bunch of drunks coming out of an El Camino with broken beer bottles as your game entrance, but I thought that would have been kind of cool. But yeah, if Texas Tech had not been the Red Raiders, we would not have had that discussion. And finally, somebody talked Iowa State off the ledge in the mid-'90s and said, it's really because they wore really shiny red uniforms and they had a schedule in the 1930s that played almost every single game outside of the state of Texas. And the people at Texas Tech got really mad about that. And they got mad about the coach, and that's one of the reasons why they ran him off in 1939. There's something about walking across the Clemente Bridge heading into PNC Park. I've never done it. JC, we bought it within the construct of rules. We didn't go bam on folks. Save a pair of boots once. Chris Pryor was a great running back out of San Antonio Converse Judson in 1983. He was being recruited by Texas Tech. They had beaten, by the way, Midland Lee in the 1983 state championship game, and he was their top running back. And the Midland Lee coach ended up at Texas Tech the next year as the defensive coordinator for Jerry Moore. And Texas Tech had a guy named Rodney Allison as an assistant coach, and allegedly bought a pair of boots, I think Nakona's, for said Pryor, and that's how Texas Tech got on probation in the 80s. No Trans Am, nothing cool, pair of boots. By the way, Pryor didn't go to Tech, and I have no idea where he ended up going right now. I cannot remember where he ended up, and he never made a dime. Chris, my in-laws are all Iowa State alums, all nuts. Now, see, I know a lot of Iowa State people and fans, and so I think they're all right. I think they're pretty good. Robert Delgado, who's just an unrepentant Yankees fan, goes Dave Winfield, who George Steinbrenner called Mr. September for his 1 for 31 performance in the World Series in 1981 after they'd acquired him as a free agent and did everything they could, the Yankees did, to get him from San Diego. And they bring in Dave Winfield, and he goes 0 for 30. He gets a hit finally in the postseason, and he asked for the ball. And it was Mr. May. That's what Steinbrenner derisively called him. Mr. May, I think, is what it was. Because Reggie Jackson, of course, Mr. October, and Reggie Jackson, a much better right fielder, and a much better player than Dave Winfield. Top to bottom, the straw that stirs the drink, the man who had the bunt that went boom and got into the fight with Billy Martin in the dugout in 1977 or 8. I've heard they have a glorious bridge. It's super. It's the Iowa State pedestrian bridge. Some say the greatest bridge of all time. Some say maybe the most beautiful bridge of all time. All right, glad you guys are with us tonight. What if Wednesday? What if Texas Tech never became the Red Raiders? I'll give you a little soliloquy on that and explain how close it was to maybe never happening. You can give us your favorite right fielders of all time as we do our Talkin Baseball summer segment. And then if you read the CBS Sports piece there by Shehan Jeyarahah today, one of the best pieces on not Tech football, not Cody Campbell. I think it's one of the best pieces I've seen written by somebody coming in with open eyes about West Texas, about Lubbock, and looking at it as it is right now in 2025, not as it was in 1999 or 2008 or 1977. Sometimes it takes people from outside with a clear lens to see a place that even the locals don't understand how it really looks. I hope to have Shehan on the show in the coming days, and not to talk about Cody Campbell or Tech football. I want to talk about his experience in West Texas. And I hope we get to do that. David Collier is the KMAC 28 sports director. That means he's on television, in color, where available, sometimes in stereo. Ichiro. All right, so Ichiro and Tony Gwynn. And Collier's just enough younger than me that he's probably, I could be wrong here, that Ichiro may be more your guy than Tony Gwynn my guy, because to me they were kind of the same guy. Not big power guys, but just hit everything you threw at the plate. You couldn't get them out. They frustrated pitchers. Pure hitters. Just pure, you could throw a frisbee and those guys would be able to hit it. Not the power guys, not the biggest of, well, Ichiro had a pretty decent arm. Better than Gwynn. But Ichiro didn't play against NC State in the anyways. Matadors would be cool, but I can't imagine not being the Red Raiders. I remember the JV football Picadors in the 70s. What Jeff is talking about back in the day, and really it was the freshman team in the 50s and 60s, and then in the 70s after they allowed freshmen to play in 1970 in college football, Texas Tech and other schools maintained a JV team. It didn't last very long. It wasn't really practical, but the Tech freshman team back in the day that Donnie Anderson played on and all the greats in the 60s and 50s was called the Picadors. The Picadors are the ones who go out and just stab the bull until the bull's about ready to die, and then the Matador comes out. I'll get to that in just a minute. And I will get to the story that maybe some of you have read on our site, but I don't think a lot of people know the hand that Pete Cawthon had in changing Matadors to Red Raiders. Collier Parish gets a lot of credit at the AJ and should, but it was really Pete Cawthon. David Collier. No, I love Tony Gwynn more, my guy. I just think he is a better fielder. Oh, Ichiro a better fielder. Yeah, Ichiro the better arm. Ichiro better lockdown guy. You didn't run on Ichiro. All right. So there you go. All right. So tonight's what if question on Fridays. On Wednesdays we have alternate history, and we ask different questions. Say, okay, what if something happened? All right, different in the world of sports. What would it look like? Tonight's question: what if Texas Tech never became the Red Raiders? What if, just like a lot of schools, unlike Nebraska, which at one point was known as the Gold Boys, the Bug Eaters, and something else before the Cornhuskers. But what if Tech had stayed Matadors? How different would things have been? You know, that's the question. All right, one more, and then we'll get into the backstory. It's like Phineas and Ferb. There's always a backstory. Duvenschmertz, 83, Rodney Allison recruiting our quarterback, signed with A&M, new Bronco next day. He was good, broke Kubiak's records at the time. Quarterback. So Kubiak played at A&M, for those who don't know. All right, so we go back to the founding of Texas Tech in 1923, and the first football team, 25, and all that good stuff. And, you know, at the time, the there were a couple of different nicknames floating around for Texas Tech. You had Prairie Dogs. You had a couple of different things that were out there. Nothing really going on. So they go with Matadors because it was already decided at the time that the architecture would be Spanish Renaissance style architecture. So in staying with the Spanish Renaissance style architecture of the school, they go with the Matadors. We all know what a Matador is. So that rocks along in the 20s and early 30s. Pete Cawthon hired in 30. The loyal disciple of Newt Rockne, Pete Cawthon. And they're getting better during the 30s. And they're playing a good competitive schedule. By the mid 30s, is when things begin to change. The schedule goes more national. Tech's winning a little bit more. You're playing across the country, and you're getting some fancy uniforms. Well, I may have to work this one in right now. I kind of think, because Ben Kirkpatrick is Tech royalty and wore the scarlet black. Kind of think Tech Matadors sounds sexy nowadays, but back in the day, probably a good change. All right. What Scribe is credited with starting Red Raiders? The Scribe, the newspaper guy, is Collier Parrish, who was a sports editor at the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, or the Lubbock Journal, maybe at the time. Anyhow, in 1936. So Pete Cawthon has them wearing these great, awesome, shiny red uniforms. You've seen it. Elmer Tarbox, that era, the 1938 undefeated team. And they're playing all over the country. And they are raiding about. We'll get back to the schedule here in just a second. But back up to about 1934-35. Pete Cawthon, the Texas Tech head coach at the time, is on vacation, and he's down in Mexico, and he goes to a bullfight. And he sees what the Matador does, which is basically dress up fancy, have the picadors and the lancers, and I mean, this is the old style bullfight, babies. Not anything like you would see today. I mean, this is the real old Mexico. We're going to kill a bull today. This guy's going to do it. And Pete Cawthon watched that, and he watched how the picadors and the lancers and the ones who come out before basically killed the bull to the point that it couldn't fight anymore. They bled it. The picadors with their lances would stab the bull would bleed. The bull is bleeding to death. The bull is dying. The bull is basically no threat to the fancy-dressed Matador, whom is representing Texas Tech now 10 years on into being a university in their football program. And Cawthon is watching this. And the Matador comes out, and he just kind of, fancy pants it around, does a little dance, and then kills the bull, which is already dead, no threat to him. And Cawthon says, I don't ever want my boys to be known as Matadors again. He comes back to Lubbock. He comes back to Texas Tech, 34-35, says, I don't like it. I don't like this. Well, that's your nickname. Well, about that time, the aforementioned Collier Parrish had already started referring to Texas Tech as the Red Raiders for the uniforms they're wearing and a schedule that was across the country. They're flying to Detroit. They're going to California. They're going wherever they can play. More on that here in just a little bit, because it's one of the reasons why Cawthon gets fired in a couple of years, even after the 1938 undefeated season. So Cawthon latches onto that and says, all right, that's it. We're the Red Raiders now. We're not the Matadors. And I don't know the history of many other schools around the country on how they might have had a nickname, an actual, and it's still, the Matadors is still, to my knowledge, the official nickname of Texas Tech sports teams. We have the Matadors song. We have all this. I don't know of any other school that maybe had a huge paradigm shift that way that Texas Tech had, that a head coach who very easily could never have been your head coach and a newspaper writer conspire together, not in a negative way, And then that became and emerged. And I mean, by 1938, it was the Red Raiders. The Matador name lingered on into the 40s a little bit. But by World War II, post World War II, Texas Tech was the Red Raiders. It happens because of Pete Cawthon hating bullfights, and he thought it was gutless. He thought the Matador was gutless. It didn't want to be associated with it. And then the uniforms in Collier Parish at the AJ calling them that. So we look back and we go, okay, what if Cawthon never goes to a freaking bullfight? Maybe the nickname Red Raiders kind of sticks a little bit, you know. Maybe, don't know. Chris gets in on the United Supermarkets chat line. It'd be interesting to see if tech leaders would tell to go fly a kite in response to complaints about the Matador name. I don't, would they complain about it today? Estacado is still the Matadors here in Lubbock. I think mostly nobody knows what the hell a Matador is around the country these days. So I don't think it'd be that big a deal. I really don't. But let's say Cawthon never goes to a bullfight. There's no pressure to do it. Maybe it picks up steam, the Red Raiders, but maybe Matador stays. How different would that have been? And we talk about all history. We talk about the idea in the late 60s, there was a push for Texas Tech to become Texas State University. How weird would it be right now today to be sitting here for you rooting for the Texas State Matadors, TSU Matadors, the Texas State University Matadors, the Matador song, still sung with pride today, but no Red Raiders, that it never occurred, it never happened for different reasons. Again, like I said, maybe Cawthon never gets that animated about it. Maybe, who knows? Maybe the newspaper guy, Collier Parish, maybe nobody ever pays attention to him. It just, kind of goes away. Maybe you never hired Pete Cawthon. Maybe they get mad at Pete Cawthon, and they did, and they ran him off. And here's another way that it could have flipped back to Matadors, would have been very interesting. Yeah, you would have had no Fight Raiders fight, no Raider Red. That doesn't happen. A live bull in Jones. Castrated when Texas comes into town. Does that mean Texas Tech State would be in the Pac-12? No, it would be the Pac-2 that they'd be going to. You ever heard of the Tech Tunnels? Well, yeah. They would know the basement of the School of Music towards the backstage entrance to the concert hall. I graduated in 2016. Congratulations. I graduated in 1992. We knew about the tunnels in 1992. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just kind of making fun of you a little bit. Yeah, they've been around for a while. All right, so getting back to the idea of how the Red Raider nickname actually comes back to haunt Pete Cawthon. So Pete Cawthon gets in trouble with Texas Tech officials in 1939 and 40. There are what we would call NCAA investigations now, conference investigations back then. And Texas Tech actually ends up on probation in 1939-40 for stuff today that you just laugh at. But the backstory had become that there was friction between Cawthon and the administration at Texas Tech and the backers at Texas Tech, because as far back as the 1930s, Texas Tech, leaders and Lubbock people, their one goal was to get into the Southwest Conference. Well, they felt like Pete Cawthon was dodging Southwest Conference teams. He wasn't playing Texas. He did play TCU and beat Sambaugh, by the way, with Jim Brown. Jim Neal from Brownfield at quarterback in 36. He played some Southwest Conference teams, but he wasn't playing a lot of them. Now, the backers of Cawthon said that the Southwest Conference teams the A&Ms, the Texases, the Baylors, the whatever, that they were afraid of playing Tech at the time. They didn't want to play him. Well, the detractors said, he was afraid of playing them, and that's why he was scheduling all these games around the country. I can't remember what year it was, 8 or 9, 38, 39, where like 7 of the games were outside the state of Texas or something like that, or against teams outside of Texas. So the whole idea of the Red Raiders, the Raiders part was they were raiding the country, going around the country, playing anybody and everybody like a barnstorming team. That became the weapon, one of the weapons used against Pete Cawthon when they fire him, force him out, 39-40, that he wasn't playing enough teams in Texas because the powers that be that were 100 years ago, nearly 90 years ago, desperately wanted in the Southwest Conference. And as we know, that would not occur, certainly during the 30s, not in the 40s, not until the late 50s and 56. So there you go. And that's how it goes. And that's how different history could have been. That you could have been one if they had voted in 1969 to become Texas State University, which a lot of people wanted. A lot of people didn't. And I'm glad they didn't get it. And then the Matadors, you could be today rooting for the Texas State Matadors. D. Wayne, I heard the state of Texas asked Tech to become Texas State way back in the day, but Tech boosters and men said no. They want to keep the double T. Is that true? That is true. There were no protests on the Texas Tech campus in the late 60s against the Vietnam War. There were protests against keeping the double T, getting the double T away, and becoming Texas State. The younger ones wanted Texas State. There were those who thought that implied University of Texas, Texas Tech, A&M down here. That a lot of states around the country, you had the University of, and you had the state school. And they thought that Texas Tech in the late 60s, that would bring them up on that. But the ones who wanted to preserve the double T, they won. And I'm glad they did. Ben, my dad told me tunnel stories from 53, not saying the name, but somebody passed a final because a certain someone crawled the tunnels to find the final and shared it with teammates. I love that story. I believe it to be true in my heart 100%. Totally believe it. Came up right underneath the bio. Well, no, it would have been the biology building. The engineering key right in through there. It was the math building. I guarantee it. It was the tunnels going into the math building because nobody was good at math. Is there a university, says Chris, that uses Matador as their mascot today? I'm not familiar with one. Maybe there is. If there is, that'd be cool. I'm not familiar with it. And there aren't any Red Raiders anymore because Colgate got rid of it. Middle Tennessee's one of them is the Blue Raiders, but it's actually only Red Raiders now. Went a little long. I hope you guys don't mind. Oh, wait, hold on. Breaking news. Cal State Northridge are the Matadors. He's got a YouTube account. He's got to be right, everybody, right? I mean, Jeff's got to be right. All right, you guys are the best. If you haven't read the CBS Sports piece by Shehan Jeyarahah, please do so. It's incredible. And when you read it, turn down your radio, turn down your TV, everything you're doing, and just read it. Okay, read it. I hope to have him on sometime in the fairly near future. I want to talk about his experience in Lubbock, Texas. I want to thank our great sponsors tonight, Gators Bayou, 98th and Slide Road, Hot Cajun Food, cold drinks, all the games on TV, awesome patio. And if you've never been there, you don't know what to order, either get the Cajun pasta. All the po' boys are really good, excellent po' boys. And if you, I don't know, you just want catfish, get catfish. All right, it's that easy. McAlpin Chiropractic, Kevin McAlpin, he's our guy, the official chiropractor of Raiderland. And of course, everybody got in tonight thanks to United Supermarkets at Market Street. Nobody does it better, right? All right, we'll clean up a couple more comments. I explained to some people from the Western U.S. about the Red Raiders name, and they looked at me cross-eyed, and then they still thought the name shouldn't be used. Go figure. Yeah, they're not real bright. They're just not real bright. You guys are awesome. I ask you to do one thing. Share this. Invite people to our YouTube channel for Ryan Hyatt's Red. If you haven't subscribed, go there tonight. Subscribe. Don't cost nothing. You can still watch on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And then same thing on our Twitter feed at Ryan Hyatt Media or X, whatever you want to call it, or on our Facebook Live thing. That's easy. Ryan Hyatt's Raiderland. Subscribe all free. See you in the morning. It's Thursday. We're rating stuff. Overrated, underrated, rated right in Raiderland. Now go share the dog out of this tonight. Have some fun. Enjoy. This stuff ain't rocket science, but it might be rocket fueled. You never know. We'll see you tomorrow. TheRaiderland.com.